Success often appears to the world like a mystery, a blend of talent, opportunity, timing, luck, and relentless pursuit. People search for formulas, blueprints, shortcuts, and secrets. They look at icons like Elon Musk and imagine that he carries some celestial advantage, an otherworldly level of genius, a superhuman threshold for risk, or a destiny predetermined by the stars. But when his mother, May Musk, speaks about what truly separates the successful from everyone else, her message is not wrapped in complexity. It's clear. It's simple. It's brutally direct. And yet, it is the very thing most people avoid their entire lives. She says the difference is this: successful people do the hard things even when they don't feel ready. Even when they don't feel supported, even when they don't feel fearless. They act anyway. From the outside, this seems obvious, even cliché. But inside a real human life, your life, this principle is the dividing line between what you live and what you dream about. It's the force that shapes destinies, builds empires, and transforms ordinary individuals into extraordinary achievers. And when you listen closely to the way May Musk delivers this message, it transcends the motivational poster version and becomes something more urgent, more intimate, something that feels like advice whispered from someone who has seen the inside of struggle, sacrifice, and survival, because she has. She raised 3 children while working 5 jobs, navigating continents, poverty, uncertainty, and seemingly impossible odds. She didn't raise her children on comfort, she raised them on courage. She didn't raise them on guarantees, she raised them on grit. Her wisdom wasn't theoretical. It was born from necessity. And the one thing she taught repeatedly was this: if you want something, you must start before you feel ready. Imagine hearing that every day growing up. Imagine being taught that waiting is the enemy of progress. Imagine being shaped by the idea that hesitation is the real obstacle, not the world outside. The world outside can be figured out. But hesitation, that internal paralysis, that is the silent killer of dreams. Most people wait for the right mood, wait for the right idea, wait for the right timing, wait for the right support, wait for the perfect plan, wait for fear to disappear, wait for confidence to magically arrive, wait for the universe to give them a sign that they are worthy. But May Musk taught her children that waiting is the first step toward losing. While the rest of the world hesitated, she made sure her kids acted. While others questioned, they explored. While others dreamed, they built. Elon Musk is often celebrated as an icon of innovation, a disruptor of industries, a figure almost too large for ordinary comparison. But strip away the myth, and you find the foundation poured by his mother, this relentless expectation that whatever you want, you begin working on it now, not tomorrow, not someday, not when the circumstances feel gentle and supportive. And this principle is not reserved for billionaires, inventors, or futuristic thinkers. It applies to you. It applies to every ambition you hold inside you, the ones you speak out loud, and even more importantly, the ones you keep hidden because you're afraid of failing, of being judged, of losing, of discovering that maybe you're not as extraordinary as you secretly hope you are. Musk insists that the people who succeed are not fearless, they're simply willing to walk forward while their hearts are shaking. They're willing to build while unsure. They're willing to explore without certainty. They understand that readiness is not a feeling but a decision. And the moment you grasp this, something inside you shifts, you stop waiting for courage to arrive, and you start moving as if you already have it. Think of your own dreams for a moment. Think of the one thing you want more than anything else. Whether it's a career goal, a financial goal, an artistic goal, a personal transformation, a new life chapter, or a vision you've carried for years. Now ask yourself bluntly, why hasn't it happened yet? The answer, if you peel away every excuse, every story, every circumstance, every perceived limitation, is almost always because you haven't started, or you haven't persisted, or you stopped the moment it became uncomfortable. And this is exactly what Musk means when she says successful people move differently. They are not luckier. They are not born into magic. They don't have fewer obstacles. They just refuse to surrender to the seductive comfort of waiting. She saw the early years of Elon Musk, years when he was bullied, misunderstood, alone for long stretches, buried in books, daydreaming about rockets and electric cars long before the world cared. She saw him as a child who didn't fit in, who was hurt, who was different. She saw him in the fragile stages where greatness feels like weirdness, where brilliance feels like isolation, where the seeds of future genius look like awkward obsessions. She didn't tell him to fit in. She didn't tell him to be normal. She didn't tell him to dream smaller to avoid disappointment. She simply reinforced the core message: pursue the thing you believe in, even if no one understands it yet, and that's where many people stop. They need validation. They need applause. They need agreement. They need someone to approve their dream before they even begin. But successful people don't wait for permission. They don't need the world to endorse their vision. They don't need a guarantee that everything will work out. They just begin, and they adapt, and they learn, and they evolve. Imagine how different your life would look if you followed this single principle. Imagine the projects you would start. Imagine the habits you would adopt. Imagine the skills you would master. Imagine the opportunities you would create. Imagine the fear you would walk straight through because you recognize that fear is not a stop sign, it is simply the emotional cost of ambition. Musk's message is a wake-up call. It is a reminder that your dream doesn't need to be perfect before you begin. It doesn't need to be universally accepted. It doesn't need to be guaranteed. The real question is whether you can tolerate imperfection long enough to build something extraordinary. She watched her son attempt impossible things. The world mocked him. Experts doubted him. Headlines predicted failure. But the foundation she gave him, this unshakable willingness to act before certainty, allowed him to keep going. And this is not exclusive to him. Anyone who has ever built anything stunning, powerful, world-changing, or deeply meaningful has lived by this same principle, so let this message settle into your bones. Let it challenge the part of you that wants comfort. Let it confront the part of you that wants a guarantee. Let it force a conversation with yourself about the life you are living versus the life you want, because the truth is, you already know what to do. You know what path excites you. You know what direction pulls you. You know which dream won't leave you alone no matter how much you try to rationalize it away. And the difference between the life you have and the life you imagine is the decision to begin, imperfectly, nervously, courageously. Today, most people don't need more motivation. They need fewer excuses. They need fewer reasons to justify standing still. They need to stop waiting for the perfect moment because it will never come. What will come is regret. What will come is the heavy weight of years spent wishing instead of creating. What will come is the sorrow of realizing that fear stole time from you that you can never get back, but that doesn't have to be your story. Not if you take this message seriously. Not if you let it ignite something inside you. Not if you decide that action, not perfection, is the new standard you live by. Elon Musk's advice is not meant to inspire you for a moment. It is meant to restructure the way you think about success altogether. It is meant to pull you out of hesitation and into motion. It is meant to remind you that greatness is not about having everything figured out, it is about being willing to walk forward anyway. Your dreams are real. Your potential is real. And your time is now, not someday, not eventually, not in the comfortable future you imagine will arrive when everything aligns. Nothing aligns on its own. You align yourself through intentional action, so begin. Begin while you're unsure. Begin while you're afraid. Begin while you feel unqualified. Begin while the world doubts you. Begin while you doubt yourself. Begin because the alternative is stagnation. Begin because successful people are not the ones who never fail, they are the ones who refuse to stay still. Let this be the moment you choose action over hesitation, courage over comfort, progress over perfection. And when you look back someday, you'll realize that this single shift, this commitment to begin before readiness, was the thing that set your entire story into motion. This is what separates the successful from the rest, and it can separate your future from your past. But there is something even deeper beneath Elon Musk's message, something people often overlook when they hear advice like start before you're ready or do the hard thing. It's not simply about action. It's about identity. It's about who you become when you adopt this mindset. Because once you start acting even when you're uncertain, you stop seeing yourself as someone who needs conditions to be perfect. You begin to see yourself as someone capable of shaping conditions instead of waiting for them. This shift is invisible at first. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look dramatic. It often begins on an ordinary day when you take a small step you've avoided for years. But that moment becomes the hinge upon which your life quietly turns. And once you prove to yourself that you can move forward without all the answers, a subtle but powerful transformation begins inside you. You stop negotiating with fear, you stop bargaining with procrastination, you stop asking permission from people who don't understand your vision, you stop needing applause to validate every move you make. This is the internal freedom that Musk is pointing toward. Because once you stop needing the world to make you comfortable, you become unstoppable. You no longer crumble at the first sign of resistance. You no longer interpret difficulty as a sign that you're unqualified. You no longer look for the easy path that everyone else is chasing. You begin to understand that discomfort is not a threat, it is a signal that you are growing. You begin to understand that action is not something you do once, it becomes the texture of who you are. You begin to understand that courage is not loud, it is quiet persistence in the moments no one sees. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. Once you start living this way, the world begins to respond differently. Opportunities appear where none existed. People notice your momentum. Doors open not because you were lucky, but because you pushed them open through consistent motion. Think about how many people stay stuck simply because they are waiting for certainty. They want a guarantee before they try. They want a map before they explore. They want applause before they create. They want someone to hold their hand and promise them that nothing will go wrong. But the truth is, nothing worth doing comes wrapped in guarantees. The most meaningful pursuits are the most uncertain ones. The most rewarding journeys are the ones where the path reveals itself only as you walk. Musk understood this long before her children became successful. She lived it herself. When life knocked her down, she didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She didn't wait for the perfect moment to rebuild. She simply acted. She kept moving. She kept creating a life from the resources she had. Not the resources she wished she had. And by modeling that behavior, she gave her children a blueprint for becoming the kind of people who don't freeze in the face of uncertainty. And this is the key, she didn't give them confidence, she gave them resilience. She didn't give them ease, she gave them the ability to endure difficulty without losing their direction. She didn't give them a comfortable life, she gave them the mindset that allows a person to build their own. It is the mindset she wants the world to understand now. Because too many people think success is locked behind intelligence, talent, connections, or privilege. But the real gatekeeper is fear. And fear is a prison with an unlocked door. Most people just don't push. This is why her message is such a powerful invitation. It's not just a statement about what successful people do, it's a call for you to step into that category. Not through magic. Not through miracles. Not through waiting years for conditions to align. But through one simple commitment: no more waiting. No more delaying. No more letting fear make decisions on your behalf. What dream have you been keeping on the sidelines because you feel unprepared? What goal have you been planning endlessly instead of pursuing? What vision have you talked yourself out of because the timing didn't feel right? What part of your life have you postponed for later? Even though later never truly arrives, if you bring those dreams into the light, even for a moment, you already feel the truth of her words. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need a clear path. You don't need universal approval. You need movement. You need momentum. You need the willingness to face the discomfort that comes with growth. That is the dividing line. The irony is, the moment you take action, you begin to feel more qualified than you ever felt while planning. The very thing you were waiting for, confidence, actually arrives through action, not before it. You become confident because you face fear, not because fear disappears, and once you experience that, your life begins to expand. Your vision widens. Your courage strengthens. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of what you lack and start seeing yourself through the lens of what you can build. Musk often says that if her children had waited for the right moment, none of their accomplishments would exist today. Not the companies. Not the innovations. Not the risks that paved the way for breakthroughs the world now takes for granted. Everything extraordinary in their lives began with uncertainty. Everything astonishing began with the willingness to act before they felt qualified. You have that same capacity within you. You have ideas no one else has thought of. You have passions no one else can replicate. You have experiences that shape you in ways uniquely suited to the path you're called to walk. But none of that will matter if you keep postponing the beginning, so imagine that this moment, right here, is the moment your life begins to shift. Imagine that you finally say, "I will not wait any longer." Imagine that you allow yourself to take the first step, not the perfect step, not the final step, just the first one, because that is how every extraordinary story begins, not with certainty, not with perfection, not with applause, but with a single decision: start anyway. And as you take that step, something incredible happens. You begin to prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you've allowed yourself to believe. You begin to feel a spark of power where there was once hesitation. You begin to rewrite the narrative of your life one action at a time. This is what separates the successful from the rest. Not talent. Not luck. Not circumstances. But consistent, courageous motion in the direction of their vision, and your story is still being written. You still have time to create something breathtaking. You still have chapters in you that will surprise even yourself. But those chapters will only be written if you start turning the pages. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that no one is coming to force them into greatness. No one is coming to make them start. No one is coming to remove their fear. No one is coming to hand them the perfect conditions they've been waiting for. And in that moment, a truth rises quietly but unmistakably. Your life changes only when you decide that you are done waiting. This is the truth Musk wants people to understand. She watched countless individuals with extraordinary potential stay stuck simply because they couldn't move without reassurance. They needed the path to be lit before they stepped, forgetting that sometimes the path lights up only after the first step is taken. She insists that this difference, the permission people give themselves to act without guarantees, is the greatest separator between those who succeed and those who remain in the realm of almost. And the more you reflect on this, the more you begin to see the subtle ways hesitation disguises itself. It pretends to be caution. It pretends to be preparation. It pretends to be practicality. It pretends to be responsibility. But underneath all those masks, it is still the same thing, fear in costume. You felt it before, the voice that says, not yet. Maybe later. Let me wait for the right moment. I'll start when I feel more confident. I just need one more month to plan. What if I'm not good enough? What if people laugh at me? What if I fail? But here is the truth successful people understand: what if you succeed? What if this dream is the one that transforms everything? What if the life you want is waiting just outside the boundary of fear? May Musk raised her children with the mindset that you push forward not because you are fearless, but because your future is worth the discomfort. She understood that if you teach a person to tolerate temporary fear, you give them permanent freedom. The kind of freedom that makes them unstoppable, resilient, and willing to try again and again until they create what others consider impossible. She watched Elon get knocked down repeatedly, financially, emotionally, publicly. She watched him face criticism that would have shattered most people. She watched him risk everything because his dreams demanded nothing less. And she didn't tell him to stop. She didn't tell him to slow down. She didn't tell him to think smaller. Why? Because she understood that once a person commits to a vision, turning back is far more painful than moving forward. She also understood something the rest of the world often misses: success is not about avoiding failure. It is about refusing to let failure stop the momentum. Failure is not a wall, it's a doorway. Most people just never push it open because the handle feels cold. But imagine if you became someone who walked through that doorway repeatedly. Imagine if every setback became a stepping stone. Imagine if every discomfort became another sign that you're moving in the right direction. Imagine how unstoppable you would be with that mindset. Your dream, no matter how big or small, requires discomfort. It requires sacrifice. It requires believing in something that only exists in your imagination. Most people quit because they expect success to feel comfortable. They expect progress to be linear. They expect effort to be instantly rewarded. But nothing meaningful works that way. Every masterpiece is built in private long before it's celebrated in public. May Musk is not merely giving advice. She is handing you a mirror. She is asking you to look at yourself and ask, are you acting like the person you want to become, or are you acting like the person who is afraid to begin? Because the answer to that question reveals everything. Think about the future version of you, the one who achieved the dream, the one who built the life, the one who didn't let fear dictate their destiny. What would that version of you say if they could speak to you now? They wouldn't say wait. They wouldn't say plan more. They wouldn't say what if it goes wrong. They would say one thing: start now. Everything you want is waiting on the other side of your first step. There is a profound power inside you that you haven't even fully met yet. There is a level of resilience, creativity, discipline, and courage that reveals itself only when you stretch beyond your comfort zone. But if you never stretch, you never discover it. And the tragedy is that most people live their entire lives without meeting the strongest version of themselves simply because they refuse to take the actions that would summon that version into existence. Elon Musk knows this well. She has lived long enough, struggled enough, and achieved enough to understand that action is the great liberator. It frees you from self-doubt. It frees you from regret. It frees you from the fear that grows in spaces where nothing moves. And once you make action your default, something miraculous begins to happen. You feel alive again. You feel capable again. You feel connected to your own potential in a way you haven't in years. The world may not change overnight, but you do, and that changes everything else. Your life is calling you forward. Your dreams are waiting for your courage. Your future is waiting for your decision. And once you decide, truly decide, that you will take action even while afraid, nothing in your life will remain the same. There comes a point in every journey when the excuses run out, when the stories you've told yourself no longer feel satisfying, when the weight of your untapped potential becomes heavier than the fear of stepping into the unknown. And that point, quiet, internal, deeply personal, is the moment everything can change. This is the moment Elon Musk speaks to when she says one thing separates the successful from the rest. It is not brilliance, luck, money, or privilege. It is the willingness to rise every time life hands you difficulty. It is the willingness to bet on yourself when no one is clapping. It is the willingness to take the next step even when the next step feels like walking into darkness, because the truth is, everyone has dreams. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has plans. But very few are willing to walk through the discomfort required to bring them to life. Most people stop at the edge of fear. They build their lives around safety instead of possibility. They choose the known over the extraordinary. And they convince themselves that it's practical, mature, or responsible, when deep down, it is simply fear steering the wheel. But you are not most people. You wouldn't be reading this if something inside you didn't already know you were meant for more. You wouldn't be absorbing this message if something in your heart wasn't already stirring, awakening, pushing against the limits you have outgrown. You wouldn't be here if your spirit wasn't already restless for a bigger, bolder chapter of your life, and that is why this final message is for you. You need to understand that your dream is not random. It was placed inside you for a reason. Not everyone receives the same vision, the same pull, the same fire. Your dream is your responsibility. Your gift. Your contribution to a world that desperately needs people willing to build what has never been built, imagine what has never been imagined, and become what they have never been before. Elon Musk's words are a reminder that greatness is not inherited. It is chosen. It is earned. It is grown through days when you don't feel like showing up, through nights when doubt whispers loudly, through moments when everything in you wants to quit. Successful people simply refuse to let those moments define them. They keep going. They keep building. They keep taking imperfect action, trusting that clarity will come through movement. That is the choice in front of you now. You can stay where you are, comfortable, familiar, predictable. You can keep telling yourself that one day you'll start. One day you'll try. One day you'll become the version of yourself you know you're capable of becoming. But one day is a dangerous phrase. It becomes weeks, months, years, and eventually, regret, or you can decide today that you will no longer negotiate with fear. That you will no longer wait for certainty. That you will no longer shrink your dreams to match your comfort zone. You can decide that the person you want to become deserves action, deserves commitment, deserves a life defined by courage instead of caution. And if you make that decision, even quietly, even privately, your entire life will begin to shift. You will feel a new current of energy running through you. You will see opportunities you overlooked before. You will attract momentum, support, ideas, timing, people, and possibilities you couldn't have imagined from a place of hesitation. The world responds to boldness, not hesitation. This is why successful people live differently. They choose action again and again. They choose courage again and again. They choose growth again and again. And each choice compounds into a life that appears extraordinary from the outside but is simply built through ordinary moments of bravery stacked on top of each other. Now it's your turn. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know the whole path. You don't need to wait for approval. All you need is the next step, the small, brave first action that signals to the universe that you are ready to become the person you were born to be. Let this final truth sink in deeply. Your future is not waiting for inspiration. Your future is waiting for commitment. Your dream is waiting for movement. Your destiny is waiting for your courage. You are capable. You are worthy. You are ready, even if you don't feel ready, and the moment you act, you step into a version of yourself that fear can no longer control. This is the legacy of Elon Musk's message. This is the truth that separates the successful from the rest, and this is the beginning of the most powerful chapter of your life, the chapter you choose to write with action, courage, and relentless belief in what you can build.